Hello, all, and welcome to another Real Talk with Canuck. It's been a minute. So today's topic is going to be one that, is a voice in the darkness, but oh well. Today's topic is WWE versus AEW. Enough already. For the love of all that's holy. So let me give you a little background on me in case this is the first video you see of me. I've been a wrestling fan since the early 90s. So, to give you an idea, I watched the Montreal Screwjob live. Anyway, so I've seen some things. Seen the rise and the fall of WCW, ECW, TNA. Been around the block a little bit. Now, in this video, I'm probably going to come across as what they like to call on the Twitter machine or X, whatever the heck they're calling it now, as a WWE mark. But I'm trying to look at this from a very logical way of looking at things. And logic these days seems to be few and far between. So here we go. WWE versus AEW is a stupid concept. It's been a stupid concept since AEW was first started 4 years ago. However, since AEW has burst onto the scene, there has been this constant need by wrestling fans online and all of the dirt sheets and tabloids of wrestling to compare the two companies. As a wrestling fan since the early 90s, I'm getting sick and tired of every single ragtag company or every single company, no matter where they fall in the pecking order, being compared to WWE. In my humble opinion, WWE and AEW are not even on the same battlefield. To give my sports fans a little bit of an idea, I consider it like this. AEW is college football. WWE is the NFL. They're the same sport, different league. And I don't say that in a negative connotation, as it may sound. It's not a negative opinion. It's just fact. WWE has been around for over 50 years. If you go to your average human on the street and ask them about wrestling, they are not going to say, oh, that AEW stuff? No. In all likelihood, because they won't even know that the name changed, they're going to say, oh, that WWF stuff. Because they won't realize that it's changed to WWE. Because the World Wildlife Fund sued WWF and they had to change to WWE. Anywho, back to topic. Let's face it, it's not the same. So recently, what's flared up are a few things that I want to comment on. Number one, Triple H, who is head of creative and big wig in WWE now, married into the family, the whole 9 yards, recently said in an interview that AEW is the secondary company to WWE, which of course sent the internet in a big tither. How dare Triple H say that AEW is the secondary company, blah, 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 to the point that the owner of AEW, Tony Khan, had to go on a damn podcast and defend himself and say that how dare he say that AEW is ahead of WWE in some markets, not any markets in the United States. And he uses the UK as his example. Well, I got news for you. WWE is a global company. AEW is not there yet. Okay? They're just not. They're just not there yet. And they may get there someday. I hope they do. They're not there yet. The other thing that's been really, really silly is this whole conversation about Wembley Stadium, and I'll get back to that in a second, but I want to touch more on what I just did. Triple H is touting the company line. Because the retort I have to all these wrestling fans that are upset that Triple H said that AEW is the secondary company to WWE. My question is, when has WWE ever stated publicly that another company is ahead of them in anything? Even during the WWE wars, when WCW was winning in the ratings, WWE would still not concede that fact. So why in the hell would they do it now? I don't understand this insanity. WWE is never ever going to say that they are number 2 publicly. Never. In any market, in any way, shape, form, never going to happen. Because WWE has always put themselves as the standard in wrestling entertainment, right? That's their gimmick. They're never going to admit that they're not doing well in UK, or they're not doing well here, or they're not doing well here, or AEW is doing better here, or they're never going to do that. There's just not something WWE is going to do. Hell, the very fact that WWE is mentioning AEW in any way, shape, or form is a miracle. Because for the longest time, as far as WWE was concerned, they were the only wrestling game in the world. So take it as a compliment that WWE actually acknowledges your existence. Because for the longest time they didn't. They didn't acknowledge anybody's existence. You'd have a wrestler that would come from New Japan or the Indies, and as far as you were concerned, they just appeared in wrestling that day. They never wrestled before because it was never mentioned. Because WWE is very WWE centric. They've branched out in the last little while, but it's a slow process. So just for WWE to mention AEW is a bloody miracle. Now, I I I cannot understand this need for Tony Khan to always compare himself to WWE, or to say that he's in a war with WWE. Because, quite frankly, the facts prove otherwise. Number one, if you were around in the WCW, WWF days, you will remember that WCW could not mention WWE by name. They couldn't mention any of the wrestlers. Now they could and did give out, the other show, right? That's how they would refer to it. The other show is going to do this, right? But they would never mention, they would very rarely mention the wrestlers' names on their television show, because WWE had this nasty little habit of suing the pants off of TBS every time they mentioned WWE on their program for using their intellectual properties on their program. AEW mentions WWE in passing or directly almost once a show, sometimes 100 times a show. And I have yet to see the report that WWE has filed a cease and desist, like they would have in the early war days of WCW versus WWF. Which tells me WWE does not give two fiddles of a shit what happens on AEW Dynamite or Collision or Rampage. Publicly, they don't care. They don't give two fiddles of a shit. And their actions prove so. They're not filing lawsuits. They're not slamming them with cease and desists every time they mention them, like they did back in the WCW days. So I don't see this war. It's fictitious. It's a one-sided war. AEW thinks they're at war, and WWE barely knows they exist. Because let's face it, WWE versus AEW is a nice thought. And I get it. Some of it is us old timers reveling in the thought of another Monday Night War. That's always been the catalyst. TNA tried it, failed miserably. And the comparisons are kind of funny because right now, and now getting to Wembley, the big push that TNA had when they were hot and not what they are now was they were selling out in the UK. They were doing big business in the UK, and their ratings in the UK were very strong compared to WWE. That was their selling point. Dixie Carter would crow about that for hours. In the grand scheme of things, didn't mean very much. And here we are in 2023, and another company is doing well in the UK. That being AEW. And once again, they're crowing that they're better than WWE because they have higher numbers in the UK. Well, here's the problem. It didn't matter then, and it's not going to matter now. Because at the end of the day, it's the US market that matters. As a Canadian, that annoys me, but it's the facts. Right? It's the US market that matters. And in the US market, nobody comes close. Not New Japan, not Impact, or whatever the heck they're calling it this week. Not AEW. I mean, the ratings alone will tell you that. SmackDown averages 2.5 million per show. Raw's sitting at about 1.5, 1.8 million a show. Collision is around the 500,000 mark. Dynamite around 900 to 850 on average. And don't even come at me with this stupid demo bullshit. I'm sorry. There's just, it's not a competition. There's no competition. And Wembley Stadium makes me chuckle because the claim to fame now is that AEW has beaten WWE's record set in Wembley Stadium. Well, here's the reality. That's a good headline. But here's the truth. Number one, it was a completely different stadium. The stadium that WWE was in when they created that, when they set that record, was torn down, and it's a new stadium that fits more people now. Just saying. Secondly, it's a great achievement. Don't get me wrong. But let's be real. They're comparing themselves to a record that was set in 1992. It's 2023. So their claim to fame right now is AEW is better than WWE because we're selling more tickets than WWE did in 1992. Seriously? What the hell? And us wrestling fans take this and go, yes, oh yes, this is absolutely correct. Yes. And the other thing, Meltzer star ratings can kiss my butt. Stupid. People who hold on to the star ratings like they're handed down from God should be dragged away and muted. But anyway, enough about that rant. But come on now. Because my question in all of this is, can you honestly look me in the eye and tell me that if WWE announced that in 2025, because we already know where the 2024 WrestleMania is going to be, but if they were to announce that in 2025, WrestleMania will happen in London, England, 2 nights at Wembley, do we really think WWE would not sell that thing out or close to both nights? Honestly, can anybody tell me they wouldn't? Honestly, not the fan reaction, not the oh WWE sucks and they wouldn't be able to sell. Give me a break. If WrestleMania returned to Wembley in 2025, it would sell out both nights or close to it. Now, of course, the Meltzers of the world would tell you that it didn't sell out, that they only sold 50,000 tickets, or they would make sure that, oh, no, AEW sold 80,000 and WWE sold 79,999, right? Because let's face it, if you go by online news, WWE will always have a negative slant to it. And we as wrestling fans don't pick up on this. AEW is being pushed. Now, some people say they're on the payroll. I don't buy that. But here's the truth, in my opinion. The reason AEW has been pushed so hard is because it gets clicks, it gets views. Because WWE was the only game in town for so long, and us wrestling fans were chiming for something new, something different, somebody to take on the big machine. And they got that in TNA. And TNA dropped the ball. They had that in WCW for all those of us who were around. And now they think they have it with AEW. When in reality, no. There's no war. It's not even a competition. And if I give my true opinion on the booking in AEW, because I watch it every Wednesday night while I'm in dialysis, I think the Star Trek clip will tell you what I think of it for the most part.
It's pretty good for shit.
I couldn't have said it better. Couldn't have said it better. And with that, folks, I hope you found this rant a little informative. And wrestling fans, if you do see this, just give it up. We're never going to have a Monday Night War again. It's not going to be like it was back in the day. Enjoy what you enjoy, like what you like, and drop this stupid WWE versus AEW bullcrap because it's getting old. Canuck out.